So, hello everyone, and welcome to our July session of Ask Me Anything at the Women's Network Students Leader Monthly Meeting. My name is Fernanda Carosi, and I am a co-chair of the Women's Network Student Leaders, and I am happy to introduce today's guest, Cara Hunter. Cara is currently the Geosolutions Talent Cloud Manager for Schlumberger. In this role, Cara manages global people assets for all Geosolutions centers worldwide. She has spent the last 11 years working in a variety of technical and leadership roles at Schlumberger, mainly focused on marine signal processing and depth imaging, as well as client engagement. She recently relocated to Dallas from Houston, where she spends most of her professional career following her master's and bachelor studies in mathematics at Texas A&M. She has been an active member of SEG since 2015 and recently joined the SEG Women's Network Committee to get more involved in supporting women in geoscience. So let's welcome Cara. Hi, Cara. Thank you for joining us today. How are
Hi,
you?
Fernanda. Looking forward to being here. Looking forward to a good discussion, conversation, and I think given the group that's able to be here and join, I'm really looking forward to having a enthusiastic conversation and yeah, just a bit of uh, everyone's time. I really appreciate it. So looking forward to it.
Thank you again, and thank you for your time as well. Yeah, we really appreciate that you are joining us today. So I think, as usual, I will start with a question, and then we just open the floor for everyone else to answer to ask all the questions that they want to. So
Sure.
my first question is: you have worked with Talent Solutions and as a leader for many years now in Schlumberger. So I wanted to ask you, which are some soft skills that you think are important for geoscience, like for junior geoscience professionals to develop?
Sure. Thank you for the question. That's a very good question. In my experience, so I'll say most of my background in Schlumberger, I started off as a processing geophysicist and then became a project leader. I will tell you, I initially thought I wanted to stay technical and wanted to really stay hands-on on the processing and imaging side with the software and developing our workflows. And I kind of made my way more into the management side and ended up really enjoying that. So I became a project manager and then from there now I'm currently the talent cloud manager. So it's a funny name because people think, oh, cloud, is it like cloud processing? So really what talent cloud is it's a virtual hub of employees that work for different centers worldwide. So I manage a team of people that, say, someone in Houston is helping a team in Gatwick, and I help facilitate all that and make sure that they have the appropriate resources and they have the appropriate experience that they need. So just so that you have a bit of understanding of kind of where I'm coming from. In terms of soft skills that I think have really helped, at least in the industry and in more the side of being client facing, because we're a service company at Schlumberger. So I've always been involved in projects and where we're having to present our work to our clients and we're having to defend why we made certain decisions. So certainly for project managers and for anyone that's in a client facing role, presentation skills are really key. And I mean, that can start as early, as early as you want in your career and in your studying to get presentation skills. But any chance that you have to practice, like here in this meeting with your video camera on, practicing, discussing, talking, I mean, any chance you have to develop those presentation skills and to develop, it's not even necessarily public speaking. I would say it's more how to present an argument, how to defend, and how to, make a cohesive story for whatever it is that you're working on. Whether I guess it might be, say, defending your thesis, it might be presenting and showing the work that we did to get the client's approval to finish out a project and to invoice and everything. But definitely presentation skills. Now that's shifted a lot to the virtual environment, and presentation skills in a virtual sense is a little bit different than in person. But that's certainly a soft skill that comes with a lot of practice, and I think is definitely important, really, in any role that you're in. Um, Another that I would say that's been important for me that I've really had to work on, especially in the virtual environment, is active listening. And I say that because, like we just talked about, you can easily turn your camera off. You can go do emails. I can be on my phone texting my husband. You never know what's going on, right? And so the active listening and really paying attention to what someone's saying, making sure you're getting the full story, that's been a really big, I guess, soft skill for me that I've tried to work on, and to make sure that I really hear what the other person's saying, what their other, maybe we're in a conflict, maybe we're discussing a big problem or a challenge that we're facing, and we're trying to get to a resolution. So really making sure that I'm listening to all viewpoints, managing a team, that's really important to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. So I would say active listening is another good soft skill that is pretty important really in any role, but certainly as a manager, certainly as a team member. I think that that's one that that I would say is pretty top. So
Nice. Great question. Great answer. Thank you for that insight.
mhm.
Really interesting. So yes, I guess I'll open the floor for questions.
I would like to ask two questions.
Sure.
Firstly, why did you choose the geophysics? I mean, was that the part of maybe the parents' advice, or you have chosen your profession, your specialty by yourself?
That's a good question. I will tell you, I did not know what I wanted to do, say, from a very young age. I always knew in school I loved math and I loved science, and that's really in going into my studies at Texas A&M. I narrowed it down to whether it was going to be biology, physics, or mathematics, and I ended up taking the mathematics role. I did choose a degree such that I did applied mathematics, so I didn't explicitly study geophysics or geology in that sense. I studied applied mathematics, and I got a chance to take a lot of interesting courses, whether it be in applied geophysics, whether it be I actually did some biostatistics. So a lot more on the statistics and math side was my training in school, and then learned a lot of computer science languages as well. Did a lot of computer science courses, learned some, MATLAB, some Maple, some C++, and then once I ended up going to get a master's. So I stayed around at the university and was getting a master's. And at that point, I figured, okay, I'm either going to go the PhD route, which is really what my advisor wanted me to do at the time. It was, okay, we need more women PhD, this would be great. And I just was not ready to stay. I was ready to get out into the real world and to see what different industries had to offer. So with an applied math background, I started talking to a lot of our former graduates. And I actually had a colleague that worked at Schlumberger that really enjoyed it and just had nothing but great things to say about it. So I ended up interviewing at Schlumberger and got a position, and feel really fortunate to have been able to get some really great training as part of the Schlumberger kind of, we have this fixed step training program that all the new employees go through. And now here I am 11 years later in energy, and seeing all the different transitions that we're going through. It's been a roller coaster in terms of the industry. I started off and it was a great time to be in the industry. I mean, we were hiring, we were doing great. And then to see from 2014, 15 and the downturn, and now a global pandemic, and now all this focus on, energy transition solutions and sustainability. It's been really fascinating to be in, but I will definitely say I didn't have a clear path in mind from being, when I was young, of this is what I wanted to do. I've been very fortunate to have a lot of opportunities that I've been offered, and I've taken them, and each one has honestly taught me something new and been better than the last. So yeah.
Thank you so much for your, let's say,
No,
great.
definitely. Thank you for the
And
question.
yeah, yeah. Can I ask the last question from my side? I'm just interested, wondering, if I will take my country, let's say Azerbaijan, we need, it's good to have masters, but when we're applying for a job in Azerbaijan, it's for us enough to have bachelors. How is it in USA? Should you have masters also, or you just, I mean, that's okay not to have masters. You can apply with the bachelor degree also.
I would say it depends on the job that you're applying for. Certainly, there are certain jobs, say in our I don't know if you want to work in research and development for our technology team. I believe that a master's or a PhD level in, say, physics or math or something is going to be much more desirable, or geophysics, for instance, for some of those roles. If you're starting off, so my background is mostly in our seismic division. It used to be called Western GECO, now we're called Geosolutions. So most of the entry level roles for that would be, say, a processing geophysicist. And for that, you don't have to have a master's or a more advanced degree than a bachelor's. It is important that you have very strong grades for your bachelor's. We do look at, when we're hiring, because I've been on that side, we do look at your grade point average, or GPR. And that is a pretty strong indicator of how well you've done in your studies. And if you've done well in studies, then we know you can learn, you can be brought in, we can teach you the software, we can teach you the workflows and things like that. But at least you've proven that you can devote, for however many years to a set track, and you can deliver on that. And so that's kind of a key. We look at your grades. We look at maybe you've done some internship experience or some volunteer experience in something related to that. So those would definitely be things, not necessarily just your level of your bachelor's or master's or PhD. But that's for that specific job. It really does vary dependent on which role you're specifically interested in, but it's definitely not required, I would say, to have a master's or above. I would say since I've been in the industry, I've seen it a lot more common. Now, whether that's because of, I don't know, the downturn and there weren't as many positions available, so students decided to stay and get a master's or a PhD, or whether it's because you weren't sure what you wanted to do, right? And you decided, well, I'll just stay and study more because I still enjoy this subject, and then try to kind of figure out from there what you want to do. But so again, yeah, I think it depends on exactly what you're looking to do, as to what your level of education would need to be for that. But I would say, at least in Schlumberger, at least in the States, or at least primarily in Houston, what I'm most familiar with, you're not required really to have a master's or above, dependent on, again, what the specific area is that you're looking into. So.
Yes, thank you so much for your time and answers.
Sure. I hope I answered, and feel free to ask additional questions.
Yeah,
I'm happy to
of
answer.
course, thanks.
At least from my experience, right? So
thank you, Turan and Cara. We are having a lot of questions in the chat, so I will be mixing a little bit of the chat questions and the questions that are on the mic. First,
sure.
I will ask a question from Ogochugu Osora. She said, "Hi, Cara. How do you manage family and work? And when do you realize that you need a little bit of break?"
That is a great question. Managing family and work. I would say that's I'm constantly learning, honestly. So I started off in the industry, a single female working, and then I met my now husband. And while I've been with Schlumberger, we've now had 2 children. So I have a son and a daughter. And so it's definitely evolved in terms of how I've learned to manage work and life. I would say early in my career, I spent a lot more time focused on, I just have to really deliver, and I have to get the job done, and I have to prove like it was really good decision that they hired me, right? And I'm really strong and really smart, and I'm going to meet any goal that you give me, I'm going to check that box, and I'm going to I worked, long nights, weekends. It was not uncommon. Now we're all working from home. A lot of us, at least, we've transitioned to a pretty virtual environment. But before, it was pretty much you had to go into the office on the weekend if you still had work to get done. So it wasn't that uncommon early in my career. I would say that I would go into work on the weekends and make sure to get things done, especially in the seismic side with processing and imaging. Computers are running 24/7. We may have a process that if you submit on Friday and it runs on machines all over the weekend, but maybe it's done on Sunday and I'm meeting a client on Monday and I have to show them the results. So I definitely earlier in my career spent a lot more time focused on my career than I did necessarily on my family, I would say. Now that I've had two kids, it's forced me to take a step back and it's forced me to really look at where my time is spent, and I'm forced, honestly, at the end of the day, my children have to be picked up from school or daycare by 5:30. So if I'm in a meeting at 5:15, I have to say, okay, sorry guys, I have to leave. I have to go get my children, and they need to get fed, they need to get bathed, they need to get to bed. So sometimes if I have work still to get done, it's not going to get done until after they go to bed. And I will say as well, I've had scenarios and situations where I've planned a super busy day where I'm going to meet all these clients and I'm going to get all this great work done. And then my son got sick. And then my husband was traveling for work. And then now I had to take a sick day, take care of my son. That's my priority. Obviously, number one is going to be on our family. But you just have to learn that life's going to throw you those kind of curveballs, and no matter how much perfectly I schedule my week and say I'm going to get this done and I'm going to, I guess, what is it, the phrase, like, women can have it all, we can just do everything at work and be awesome employees and awesome like really contributing members, whether it's a university or whether it's a corporation. And we're going to be awesome moms, and I'm going to teach my son to read, and I'm going to teach my daughter all these new words. And it's definitely I guess I would say something that evolves over time. And I've definitely learned as a working mom that work-life balance and managing family along with having a career is definitely something that looks different for everyone. And I've learned that I really have to have certain times where I just have to say, it's not going to get done today and it'll get done tomorrow. And the next however many hours is going to be spent with my family, where my focus is going to be there. It is hard to disconnect sometimes and not take work or stresses from whatever you're going through with you when you come to focus on family. But overall, again, I think it looks different for everyone. And I have a very supportive spouse as well. We have to plan our calendars at the beginning of the week. So I work with a global team now. And as part of that, sometimes I'm talking to colleagues in Perth, Australia. Sometimes I'm talking to colleagues in Port Harcourt, Nigeria. And I have to definitely manage, okay, I have a 6 or a 7 a.m. meeting. I can't take the kids to school that day. So we have to make sure at the beginning of the week to be very organized that if I have a 7 a.m. call, he can take care of the kids. And if I have a 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. call with Perth, he's going to be able to help, get the kids baths and get them to bed. So definitely having a supportive spouse that, you can really help to balance a lot of that is another important thing that I would say. So I think that's most of it from my side, but I'm sure I could keep talking about it. So.
Thank you, Cara, for the all the insight, and thank you, Olo, for the question too. And I think we keep falling into this support that is so important, right? Either from your husband or from your family or from your friends,
right?
For a successful career. We have been discussing about support and how this is actually the key, I guess, for everyone. So it's great to hear it from you too.
No, definitely.
Yeah. So let's go with Odette. You want to go ahead and ask your question?
Sure. Let me lower my hand there. So, hey, Cara. So you have been in Schlumberger for 11 years, and probably during this time you saw many ups and downs and in the oil and gas industry, and probably also saw many of your colleagues or even people in your team leaving the company or being affected by these ups and downs.
Hmm.
So, for you, what are the main skills that can help you not being so affected um, by all these fluctuations that we have in the oil and gas industry?
So when you say the main skills to keep you from not being affected, are you meaning the main skills in terms of managing your own like mental health and wellness, or are you saying to try to
Everything.
everything? Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a loaded question. I will definitely say, unfortunately, as many in the industry, we have quite a lot of reduction in our staff, whether that was being released or whether it was people being offered early retirement. A lot of my colleagues, close colleagues that I either worked with or that I looked to as mentors, took some early retirements, and now we've lost a lot of that expertise and people that I would go to and say, "You've got 35, 40 years experience in the company. I need your advice and things." And so it's been difficult to see. We do still try to keep in touch with a lot of those colleagues outside of the office, but certainly the industry and my team in general has changed quite drastically over the last few years. In terms of, as an employee and still being thankfully gainfully employed at Schlumberger, um, work still has to go on. And I know a lot of us over the years, we've had to take on more responsibility for no additional title or increase in salary or any additional benefits. And many people have had to do this. I mean, if it was for me, if it's a choice of, being released or you run two jobs instead of one and you still have a job, I'm going to work two jobs instead of one and still try to keep the business moving and still try to contribute as best I can, I would say. I do think there has been, especially given the pandemic, there's been a lot bigger focus on mental health and wellness. And that's something I've really liked seeing because I will tell you from my personal experience, I've suffered in the past from anxiety. And there was always kind of a stigma of talking about it, right? Like I would just keep it to myself and say, oh, I get stressed and sometimes it impacts my ability to really focus, but I can get over it. I can just push through it. I can be strong. I can do it. And actually being able to talk to colleagues, being able to talk to my manager and say, I really can't manage this right now. I am too stressed. I have to deliver on this thing by Friday. Can I get that to you next week? Like being able to have those open conversations has been really helpful, especially when we have taken on additional work and things during with all the different changes that have happened in the industry. So making sure that you make your mental health and wellness a priority is something that has definitely been a lot more focused on in the last year, and something that I personally have tried to focus on a lot more as well. Whether it be, journaling or meditation, whether it be making sure you get some exercise, some physical activity in, whether it be just having a 30-minute coffee hour or chat with a colleague or a friend, maybe in a different country, and just saying, hey, how are you doing? Like talking about something other than what you're so focused on all the time, whether it be on your studies or on something you're delivering at work. That's definitely something that has helped all of us, especially, as myself as a working mom. I'll have kids walking into my calls, or, like I said, having to balance, I don't know, a kid gets sick or various things. But um, it's definitely been a roller coaster. It's been a lot of fun. It's had a lot of challenges as well. But I guess that would be some of the things I would say about how we've been able to cope and manage, and just having those honest discussions really with your teams, with your management. And you can only do so much, and you're going to know what your limit is. So,
Thank you so much for your answer.
mhm. No, thank you for the question.
Great. So the next question comes from Isabela Danzas. She says, Cara, thank you for being here with us today. How was your transition to management? And can you give us some leadership tips?
That's a very good question. Thank you, Isabella. How was my transition to management? That's an interesting one. I would say I'm not sure how this is at other corporations, but certainly at Schlumberger, if you're willing to take on additional challenges, additional responsibility, they're very happy to give it to you. So, excuse me, I wouldn't say that I necessarily said, I want to be a project manager, I can do it, and I worked my way to get that. I think I showed that I was a strong employee. I showed that I was able to get objectives and meet certain goals. And I was kind of given the opportunity of, okay, we need someone to lead this project. And I volunteered and said, I will do it. And you kind of, it was a bit of, what's the phrase that I love? It's a bit of drinking from a fire hose, basically. Like you just get a lot of information thrown at you, a lot of I one of my first projects that I managed, it was kind of, okay, you're going to be this project manager, and we're going to meet the client next week, and we have a startup, and you have to get the project in the system, and the data's coming in, and you have to. Well, I didn't know the first thing about doing that, and it's not like we had a manual that step by step said, step 1 to be a project manager, make sure you do this. Step 2, make sure you do that. So certainly I asked for a lot of help. And definitely, I would say, don't be afraid to ask for help. I asked for a lot of advice from other managers that I really respected and that I saw had led successful projects and that I'd enjoyed working with. Um, in terms of leadership roles, I'm not sure if maybe Isabella or Fernanda, you can repeat the question in terms of there was something about what kind of leadership skills or maybe if you repeat real briefly what the last part of the question was, and I'll make sure to touch on it.
For sure. I don't know, Isabella, if you want to expand, but what she wrote was if you can give us some tips on how to develop leadership skills and expand a bit on leadership skills. That's
leadership skills. Okay. Excuse me. One of the main things I would say in terms of developing leadership skills, and I think we touched on this a bit earlier about active listening and listening to others and listening to different members of a team. As a leader, I mean, your job is really to bring out the best in all the team members that you're working with. So as a leader, some of the things I had to really work on was bringing teams together, really listening, understanding what each individual employee's key strengths were, what their interests were, where they were going to bring the most value, and really making sure that I encouraged them and I empowered them to, yes, I'm going to trust that you can get that job done. And when you get it done, you'll hand it over to this person and then they'll do this, and just putting all the pieces together. So definitely, I think for me, part of being a leader is really trying to empower others to be strong leaders themselves and to empower them to really try to bring out the best in each of the team members and make sure that we're all aware of the common goal that we're working towards. And if we have challenges, we're going to have challenges. I mean, no project that I've ever been on has gone perfectly from start to finish, but you're going to work together. I have to be, as a leader, I would say, I have to trust my team. I can't be one thing that I don't appreciate as a team member and as a manager myself is someone who, say, micromanages, right? And comes in and tells you every little thing that you're doing wrong, or okay, they're, if they don't trust I'm going to get the job done and they're just going to go do it themselves, then I'm not going to do my best work. So I would say as a leader as well, you really want to make sure that you trust and empower your team to try new things, to think outside the box, to be innovative, to if they want to do an additional, task on top and try something different, to tell them, yes, you can do that. And then see what happens. And it may work out and it may not, but I'm going to trust and I'm going to empower them that they're going to get the job done, and I'm going to back them up because we reached that together, essentially. So.
Great. Thank you. I want to follow up on that question. Just 1 minute on that. Has it been more difficult as a leader in this last year to keep people motivated? And if that has been the case or not, like, how do you really keep people motivated to, keep working towards a goal?
That is a great question. Motivation has been a huge topic, a huge issue in a number of ways, right? Because everyone's dealing with their own situations. In terms of motivation, I would say, I guess it's different for everyone. One of the key things for me in terms of keeping team members motivated would be to make sure that, again, they know that I have their back. They know that I will trust that they're going to get the work done, and to show them empathy. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned in the last year, and a lot of us have learned, is, if someone is dealing with something outside of work, to just have understanding that, okay, your son or daughter is sick, by the, all means, take the afternoon off, and if you need my help, let me know, and then we'll catch up tomorrow. It's not the okay, but I still need this thing by 5 o'clock, and we're absolutely going to get it done, and I'm sorry that you're dealing with that on the side, but it's really, we're all human. We're all people. We're all, whether it be like, sons, daughters, whether it be parents, whether it be, we're all human, and just having that human aspect. I think some of the best leaders that I've learned from, that have helped me to stay motivated and engaged. I think maybe engaged is more the term here. Are people that talked to me like a human being, and maybe didn't start off the conversation initially with, okay, so we have this client meeting and we got to do XYZ. It was, so how's your family doing? How is your relocation? How is the house hunting going? Okay, then get into the specifics of whatever the business topic is that we're going through. For me, especially in a virtual environment, it's very important to set up one-on-one discussions with colleagues. So whether we have a weekly team meeting, and sometimes people will participate, sometimes they won't, but it's very important for me, whether it's to keep team members motivated or to keep them engaged, and make sure that they know, and that I know what they're working on, and it's a two-way street, is to set up one-on-one discussions. And that way, especially in the virtual environment, we have to schedule that in our calendar and make sure I'm going to have this 30 minutes undevoted conversation with you. And we're going to catch up, and not just expect that, if you need me, you'll message me and things, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So I guess that would be one piece of advice, or one thing that I've learned in terms of keeping teams motivated and engaged. And honestly, at the end of the day, I'll say, in this environment, we've had tough times where colleagues have lost their positions, and you may just have a meeting where you go, yeah, did you hear about Fernanda? That was disappointing. And okay, and you just kind of have to be real, and face the fact that, okay, but we still need to move forward. But no one's going to say, okay, let's just move on. I mean, you have to kind of face reality a bit, I guess, in certain situations. But we all move on, and trying to stay positive, stay optimistic that there's good things to come, and everything happens for a reason. And so, yeah, I guess that's the last I would touch on that topic. So.
Thank you, Cara.
Not that I'm saying Fernanda is going to be released.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. No, I'm just using you just as an example. So
it's all good. No worries. Yeah, no, yeah, nothing personal there.
Yeah.
So Arunima is asking, you have long been a part of SEG. How did you transition from a student to a professional in terms of being part of SEG on contributing towards it?
All right, thank you for the question. In terms of my experience with SEG, I would say that, especially as a student and early professional, I think quite honestly, it was one of the organizations I knew that I needed to be a part of. Luckily, as a team member at Schlumberger, I can have some of the cost covered for my membership. I knew that I would get the our publications, and I could go to the conference if I was available, but I didn't really use a lot of the other resources that SEG offered until fairly recently, in the last couple of years in my career. So all of a sudden I got more involved in terms of going to SEG conferences, actually being member of the team at our Schlumberger booth, whether it be being co-authors on papers for presentations. And then honestly, at the last conference, in terms of to address the point on being a bit more involved, I've been involved in a lot of things internal to Schlumberger, and we have a women's organization called Connect Women in Schlumberger, and I've been our local campus leader for that, and I've really enjoyed some of the webinars, some of the panel discussions, and some of the topics that have come up in a lot of those meetings. And so as part of that, and then seeing as well personally from going to SCG conferences and seeing the large number of men compared to women in terms of the representation, seeing panels that have primarily men on them and no women leaders really represented. That was something that really spurred me to say, well, why don't I volunteer for the committee and get a bit more involved, and maybe I can propose some names of women leaders that could be on these panels for the next conference. So for me personally, that's one of the reasons I just contacted the team and said I would like to be a bit more involved. I'm happy to volunteer and spend part of my time on that. It's a cause I feel strongly about. And again, because I've benefited from being in a women's network, essentially equivalent at Schlumberger, then I thought, well, if there's more that I could be participating in and learning from and contributing to in SEG, then that's something I want to do. So it was just something that I kind of stepped out of, honestly, my comfort zone and said, okay, there's a team of people I've never met personally, or maybe met one or two of them at previous conferences or seen them on and talk, but let me see if there's a way I can be a part of this team, and maybe I can contribute and send some of my ideas forward and share some of my experience. So really just got a bit more involved as of the last 7 months or so. But so far I've really enjoyed it, and getting to be in talks like this and getting to meet different people and hopefully just share my experience and just bringing another voice to the table, basically. So.
Yes, and I think the Women's Network have benefited a lot from having you in the committee as well. Like, the committee is much more organized now. We have a database with all our information. I am also using that in the students community, learning from you and trying to spread all that knowledge around as well. So
sure. No, thank you very much. Yeah.
So our other co-chair is asking Dorothy Canini. She's asking, hi, Cara, thank you for your time. What are some of your success habits?
What are some of my success habits? Ooh, that's a good question. So some things that I would say in terms of, again, I think success is something that is going to sound different to different people. I will say, for a personal example, I am a big to-do list maker. So I constantly have a list of here's the things that need to get done, and I try to prioritize them, and I try to plan my day such that I have enough time spent on, this key activity that I'm involved in, or this key thing that I need to get delivered by the end of the day, or talk to this person because we have a conflict on something that we need to resolve. So for me, again, I'm a big to-do list maker, but I don't know in terms of a success habit. For me, I like to see that because I feel like it helps as a very, it's probably the math part of my brain, as a very organized, logical thinker. I like to see that and know that if it's not on my list, then it's probably not a priority. At the same time, there are some days where to be, I don't know, to consider the day a success, I would say, like the day is so busy. There's meetings here, there's another meeting here, there's this talk, there's this call, and I want to also get a bunch of things done. You really have to try to prioritize and pick like the top 2 or 3 things and say, if I can get these 3 things done today, then it'll have been a successful day. I know that there's 8 or 10 things that I would love to get done, and it would be great if I could get all of them done, but realistically, at the end of the day, someone may call you and throw a curveball and say, oh, we have this problem on a project, we need to address it now. Okay, well, that took, 30 minutes or an hour out of my calendar that I had planned to get this other task done. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that day wasn't, I don't know if success is the right word, but if it wasn't, as productive as I thought because I didn't get 8 things done. But as long as I got the top 2 or 3 in terms of prioritizing, then that day was a productive day and I was able to allow time for those other kind of things that may just pop up. Other success habits that I would say, I don't wake up and check my work email. That's a personal thing. I know some people that do, especially in this virtual environment. There was a time at the beginning where I felt that I had to wake up and immediately go start working. 6 o'clock. I didn't need to commute. I didn't need to eat breakfast. I didn't need to, I could just go immediately start my day and I can get so much more done. I have been personally much more happy as an individual and probably a better contributing employee as well in terms of being able to focus because I don't check my work email the first thing I wake up. If I can get some exercise in, great. If not, I'm still going to get a shower. I'm still going to have breakfast with my family. And then I'm going to start work at 7 or 7:30 or whenever it is on my schedule that I've planned. Either I have a meeting or that's when I'm going to get my work done. That for me has been pretty key in terms of making sure that I can get up and be mentally prepared to get the day started. And I think that's been a lot better just for my mental health and well-being as well. Not to feel you feel a lot of times the pressure of I need to be doing this, I need to be checking these things, but the work is still going to be there, whether I check my email at 6 a.m. or whether I check it at 8 a.m. So I guess that's a small thing I would say that I do. And I try to, especially work from home, try as much as I can to have a pretty designated time that I work, with, again, knowing that things are going to come up and require me to work longer hours and whatnot. But trying to make that a designated habit and a key thing that I try not to change out of my daily routine has been important. So
Nice. Mental health again, right? Like, so
it
important.
is, yeah.
Definitely. So we have a question from Kioma Ongumeluk. She says, when you began your career many years ago, did you ever imagine that you would be a manager or a leader in a male-dominated profession or environment? And I want to add to that, how do you deal with this?
Okay, that's a great question. Yes, of course. I was a woman in studying mathematics. I mean, I was already in school, one of the only females in a class of 20 others that were male, and so I guess I was kind of used to that being in school, which may have maybe helped me to be a bit more comfortable with being the only one in the room, right? It wasn't very common, I would say, for women to be studying math or to be studying statistics and to be in a lot of these upper level courses. But that being said, in terms of imagining that I would be a manager or leader, I don't know, again, that I knew what I wanted to do or I knew what the environment was going to be like until I really got in it. But at the same time, I've been equally empowered by other women and equally had opportunities to be that woman at the table and to be that voice. To give you an example, in terms of, there have been many meetings where I've been one of the few women or one of the only women in a meeting. And I actually came into a meeting room once, and our president at the time of our portion of Schlumberger, we were having this big client meeting. And there's a table in the middle of the room, and there were 8 chairs around the table, but there were also some extra chairs along the walls. And I knew there's probably going to be 10 people in this meeting. And I personally went, in my mind, now this is something I did, it wasn't that the company, told me to do. I thought, well, I'm not the most important person at the table. I need to sit in one of these chairs along the wall. And actually, another woman leader in the room said, Cara, you need to sit at the table. And I was kind of like taken a bit aback, like, well, okay, if you say so. And she said, your voice is equally as important to be heard. I was one of the first ones in the meeting room. So I would say, she didn't say this in front of a room of 10 men, for instance, but we were getting ready to get started for the meeting. And having someone tell me that and giving me the mindset of, I have an equally important voice to be heard, that was really empowering for me. So that is something that I would say I've learned from that particular person, but also just that voice needs to be heard, and that voice needs to be in those meetings and needs to be at the table. And I'm currently on a leadership team for our headquarters team that is made up of 9 people, and I'm the only woman. And sometimes that's difficult, but sometimes it's also, I feel that there needs to be that different voice there, right? And needs to have a differing opinion, because otherwise we may keep doing things along a similar track that we always have if you only have, echo chambers of the same opinions or the same decisions being made. So sometimes having that different voice at the table, I think, is really important. So I would say, yeah, whether I imagined that I would be here, or whether now I've had really great women leaders, and now with the Women's Network and people that I've met, have just really given me confidence that, there's no reason I shouldn't be there, right? I shouldn't be that leader. I shouldn't be that manager. And now, being a little more experienced in my career, just being that example to show other women leaders as they're starting in their careers in the industry, that there is a possibility for you to be there, and you should be there. And the only way we're going to get more equal representation is for people to take chances, right? And to come and actually, again, sit at the table. Don't sit on the side of the room or on the wall, but actually sit there and make sure you're contributing when you have opinions and ideas that are worth sharing. So.
Great. Thank you for the question and the answer. Both of them really interesting. So is there any last question that anyone would like to ask? I think we have learned so much from you today, Cara, and it has been so motivating to hear from your experience and your knowledge, sharing your knowledge today. Again, I'm so grateful for being. I want to thank you for being here, and we are really grateful for having you today.
Thank you so much, Fernanda, for the time, and for everyone's time being here. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you again, and have a good day, everyone. Have a good weekend. See you soon.